تلو سناي كرامات نوبي طلع حزيرو نقول الله تقم دمسي لخابلو لالو يا عماتي.
The fight for independence in Eritrea had one major goal, and it was misconstrued probably. Yes, the Eritrean independence was an issue, but why were we coordinating and working in solidarity with so many Ethiopian organizations at that time, including the ones who are in Addis now, enjoying the life of the throne in Ethiopia? The whole idea was the historical partnership between Eritrea and Ethiopia, which was distorted because of historical facts in the 20th century, will have to be reshaped. And that could be reshaped by solidarity and a joint struggle for removing those obstacles. Maybe the last obstacle was, to me, the DERG as a system, as an organization, not as individuals. And the aspiration was this relationship could be not a relationship to benefit Eritreans and Ethiopians, but it could influence the broader region of the Horn of Africa. And that was not a dream; it was a real aspiration of everybody else, and we worked on that line for maybe no less than 17 years with all other organizations, and probably beyond that. So it's history. It's a matter of reality. The present history, future history will have to tell us that we can only live as blessed neighbors, and we'll have to not only wish or aspire to that goal, but we need to work together to create this reality on the ground, change the history that distorted everything in the relationship between the two peoples. We have to do sacrifice even sometimes. But unfortunately, the DERG was not the last obstacle to this healthy relationship which should have been established between Eritrea and Ethiopia a long time ago. The last 18 years have been wasted. But that does not mean this history or this relationship will remain distorted. No one can distort it. Put an obstacle, delay, spoil things here and there, but for us in Eritrea, we have sacrificed, we have gone a long, long way to live as good neighbors with Ethiopians, no more, no less. That's been one major objective, because you cannot imagine an independent Eritrea surviving in a vacuum. We can only live in a reality where we would call a safe neighborhood. A safe neighborhood is living with your neighbor peacefully. But that, again, is not the ultimate goal. You'll have to work together. And I would say it would be very myopic to consider this obstacle of the last 18 years that has been put by this Wayana clique, the small Wayana clique. It will not change the course of history. The course of history is, whether people like it or not, we can establish a solid relationship that will serve generations to come, not only here in Eritrea and Ethiopia, but also in the broader region. So for us in Eritrea and for the Ethiopian people, this has been and still remains to be a common goal. Us trying to I mean, you may not know these guys, but they live in their fantasy. It's a reality. I mean, my knowledge about how they think, how they behave, and it's a sickness actually for me. They would like to see things the way they wish things to be. Their picture of Eritrea, their picture of the reality here, their picture they want to see of the government here, it's a fantasy thing to me. They'd like to fantasize. It's like having very bad dreams, but again, you don't want to see those dreams, and you would like to create your own image about what you want to see. I mean, there are realities, of course, with the strategic differences we had on a number of issues, beginning from the formation of the TPLF as an organization. Our relationship with all Ethiopian organizations was not aimed at removing the Mengistu government or that. It was not like that. It was not meant to extend the life of our struggle. That was not the case. It had a very clear objective. The objective was, as I indicated earlier, to establish a good, a solid relationship with Ethiopia. That there is no question about that. Now they may tell you, oh, this relationship, Eritrea and the government in Asmara is playing its game to extend its life. It's a fantasy to me, and it's meant to basically distort the politics, the philosophy behind our existing here. We've been very clear on this issue since day one, even since before 91. We would like to establish working relationships with all Ethiopian organizations, and we have done it. We have proven that it was not tactical. It's not only Eritreans, even some Eritreans may think this is tactical for us because we want to weaken this and that, doing that, and any issue, even our positions of solidarity with Somalia is misconstrued to mean that we would like to make Somalia a battleground for fighting the Wayana there. This is sheer fantasy. These are sick individuals who have nightmares every 24 hours, who are scared about their own thinking, who know that this is not the rightful place. And they would like to give the impression that, well, this is tactical, they just want to extend their life, they won't be able to do that without these machinations or tactics. We need to look back into history, and we need to understand the mentality or the psyche of this small clique. I wish, I don't know, even the reality here in this country, they don't want to see this real image of Eritrea. They don't want to see how things operate here. They have their own wishful thinking about how things should be here. And one scary thing for this Wayana clique is Eritrea establishing ties and working together in partnership with Ethiopian organizations, Ethiopian groups everywhere. There is no other issue in the mind of the Wayana clique, and they may have their concerns about Eritrea, about the government, about the policies of the government, but the most scary thing of the small clique in Addis now is if Eritrea could establish a very broad relationship with all Ethiopian groups, all Ethiopian nationalities, and create a very solid working relationship with them, they know that will speed up the process of their collapse. I think in the first place, this has come probably late, and given the deliberate distortion and confusion, I've said this time and again, if there is any threat to the Wayana clique in Addis, it's the partnership and the solidarity between Eritreans and Ethiopians. You may consider all other options, Eritrea establishing ties with one group or another group in the region outside Ethiopia. That may not be a threat in the eyes of the Wayane, but this is a genuine threat. And a lot has been done to distort this reality. I mean, distorting how Eritreans look into this relationship, the future for generations, what the current situation looks like in terms of creating this relationship. A lot of damage has been done because of the distortions and the machinations for broadening or trying to widen the gap and to create hostility amongst Eritreans and Ethiopians. I don't think the Wayane could live one day without thinking about this plan. This is the whole plan. Now, this has happened in San Jose. I think it should have happened a long time ago, and it should have been done everywhere where Ethiopians and Eritreans live. I mean, who would benefit by inciting conflict between Eritreans and Ethiopians? For us, this chapter is closed, not with Ethiopians, but this chapter was closed with the rulers of Ethiopia before this Wayane clique came to power, and that was the end of the story. And it was not even based on the fact that there is historical enmity between the two peoples. That has never been the case. It's a distortion of history, but now, in terms of the reality, I believe more of this should have been done in the past, and frequently. Even when you have differences of ideas, you need to sit down and talk about them. And that's how we can correct distortions, how we can fight even the campaign going to incite more and more of conflict between Eritreans and Ethiopians. Not because we want to challenge the programs, the propaganda of the Wayane clique, but that is history, and it has been done a lot in the past and needs to be done for the future. I believe forums need to be created amongst Ethiopians and Eritreans to discuss this matter. Now, what the future relationship between Eritrea and Ethiopia would look like, I can imagine so many things. We've been talking about a broader relationship within the region. I'm talking about IGAD, talking about other regional organizations. We talk about integration. Integration in a broader sense. Integration in a broader sense would consider relationships with Sudan, Djibouti, Somalia, and other peoples in the region. How do you arrive at that goal? By meeting and talking together. I mean, 91, the plan was very clear. We are two independent sovereign states. We have a historical partnership to create or put in place a conducive climate for cooperation. One of the difficulties with the Wayane clique was integrating our economies, harmonizing policies, gradually working together to link the two economies so that we have a genuine economic integration between Eritrea and Ethiopia. This was no secret to anyone. And even in 1997, when this border conflict was fabricated, one of the excuses was Eritrea is using Ethiopia as a dumping ground for its products. There were no products that were any serious to the Ethiopian economy. Eritrea is trying to exploit Ethiopia's resources. Eritrea is trying to do this, and that was very symbolic and very damaging to the relationship. Wayane never wanted to do that. Wayane or this clique had in mind any close relationship between Eritrea and Ethiopia would weaken the position of Wayane, controlling power in Ethiopia, and gradually eliminate this idea of one small clique in the Wayana controlling the whole thing, and that was an obstacle. That economic integration could have gradually led to more of working together in other areas. Security is one thing. Bilateral cooperation programs for the stability of the region could have developed into some kind of a pact between Eritrea and Ethiopia. It's not between two governments in Addis and Asmara. That would guarantee peace and stability in the region. We could go for gradual cultural, social integration. Other programs could have come. This is the substance of integration. Security of both and the region. It could have gone beyond that. The integration of Eritrea and Ethiopia in so many areas and so many programs would have its implication, a regional implication. And that was clearly put on the ground. From my understanding, one of the causes of the conflict, the border conflict, which was insanity to me, it was never ever an issue. And this may be an analytical approach to what happened in 1998, but the threat to the Wayane was this approach. Now, any attempt, any campaign, any propaganda from the Wayane clique to see more of widening gap and inciting misunderstanding between Eritreans and Ethiopians is to put an obstacle to this course. That's where I believe people need to be aware, Ethiopians as well as Eritreans. We should be hostage to this very narrow sentiments. We should be hostage to history. We need to look forward and work together. Any meeting in the United States amongst Eritreans and Ethiopians, a similar meeting in Europe, the Middle East, Africa, everywhere, even here in Eritrea, that should be encouraged. If anyone believes and has a case to make, there is no reason why people should not participate in such occasions. Even when you don't like the other party, you have to come and talk to the other party. If you have any idea to sell, come and talk about it. You want to persuade me on your beliefs, I would like to listen. If I have anything to tell you and I would like to persuade you on one thing, I will have to say it. And I think that's how you can create a conducive climate for the future relationship. It's nothing new. It was tried, it was done. Unfortunately, it was interrupted because of the campaigns and propaganda of the Wayane and the deliberate intimidation of people not to get engaged in this kind of exercise. These are the exercises we need. The elite can meet and talk, governments can come and talk, but that's not the substance of the matter, and I believe this should be encouraged to go beyond meetings of Eritreans and Ethiopians in many parts of the world. So now the idea and the substance of the meetings, all issues, you may have 200 questions coming from your people everywhere in the world. I mean, why not discuss these 200 questions in a meeting? And that's how you can educate people. You make people aware about the issues at stake. And this is not a matter of a political exercise for the sake of going into an exercise. It's the future of generations to come in the region. It's the future of generations in Eritrea and Ethiopia. And I think organized meetings 2, 3, 4 times a year in different places with concrete agenda set for discussion and the participation broadening every day, you will see the results. The results will be more than anyone can imagine, and I would encourage that to take place even here in Asmara, and people come and talk about these issues. It could happen anywhere in the region, so I can assure you this is, but ultimately the substance of the matter will be, if we're blessed neighbors, if generations to come will live like blessed neighbors, they will have to discuss concrete issues It's integration, what type of integration and how. Given the realities here and there, given the realities in the region, we need to not only talk politics, but we need to talk about other strategic issues, and these are no monopoly for the elite to discuss. Everybody needs to know what the future looks like for generations to come. There could be some justifiable reason for believing something that is not true, but when this is found by one group like the Wayana clique to try to create conflict I go back to probably the early 90s, even before the conference that was held in Addis in 1992. And we pushed for one idea. And I go back again to justify what I will have to say about the point you raised, because our wish and our desire was the withdrawal and other political organizations we worked with. Of course, the Somalis were not there. The Afars, they had their own reality then. Before the creation of the OPDO by the Wayana within the EPRDF umbrella, we said that is not the way. You have the OLF, you have the other Amhara organizations or the multinational organizations, and you have an organization. There has to be some form of alliance. I was considering a triangle which could be a starter for including the other groups. The rift on the approach was very clear. Wayana never wanted that to be the case. They never wanted to have an alliance with the other organizations that were then prevailing as real political organizations. They wanted to create this umbrella of the EPRDF to control the organizations of the other nationalities. Under the umbrella of the EPRDF, there would be an Amhara organization which could be easily manipulated by the Wayana clique. There could be an Oromo organization within this umbrella which could also be manipulated by the Wayana clique. That option was a strategic choice for the Wayana clique. Our strategic choice was those existing organizations will have to put the basic foundation for the future cooperation of organizations. And there was no bias or partiality in dealing with all organizations, in spite of the reality on the ground. That is very significant. In terms of what we talk about Arbeños, other Amhara organizations, as if Eritrea has a closer relationship with the Tigrayans and very remote relationship with the other nationalities in Ethiopia. This is a deliberate distortion of reality. It's a distortion of history. Who would benefit by creating this kind of relationship? You can talk about proximity, you can talk about geography, you can talk about other considerations, real politics of the 1974-91 era, how things evolved, who was there and how we could establish. I mean, we had to go through the Sudanese territory and work with the Oromo in the Wallaga area. And we had to work with them to see that some form of government. Never ever was this entertained by the Wayana clique. They felt it was a threat for them to come and work with the other nationality organizations or the multinational organizations who did not even recognize the national organization of struggle within Ethiopia. That is very significant. Now, they may tell people, oh, this is the case. It may have been implicitly indicated to some of the Amhara organizations. I don't call Amhara organizations. They may be multinational organizations. They are not there to represent one small clique. We have never believed a small clique could represent the people of Tigray. That could be transitional. There could be national organizations as transitional organizations. You can never imagine of having permanent organizations representing exclusive nationalities in Ethiopia. This has never been our school of thought. It's never been entertained by us. It's only transitional. Given the fact of history, you can have national organizations, but gradually these national organizations will have to come together to work. 1992 and before that, when we were proposing that some kind of alliance needs to be established, even before the downfall of the DER. After that, in 1992, this idea came because that was a strategic choice for the Wayane, and that's one of the political damage done in Ethiopia. Have we changed? We cannot change. I would not imagine and dream about organizations closed into particular nationalities in Ethiopia. That will never be to the benefit of Ethiopia or to the benefit of anyone. You may fight for the right of one nationality. You may think one nationality is marginalized and will have to go beyond that and establish its equal citizenship, equal rights and freedoms with the other nationalities. That could be transitional. If you look down the road and can imagine the reality in Ethiopia after 20, 30 years, I wouldn't like to see national organizations working within Ethiopia. It's not the kind of thing we entertain. I would do it here in this country. I would want to see the Sudanese do it, dividing the Sudan into national entities and having national organizations representing the people in each and every sub-region or region. I wouldn't like to see that happen anywhere else in Africa. It shouldn't happen in Ethiopia. Yes, national organizations, because of circumstance, of history, because of realities, you can go beyond certain limits, but that's not a permanent structure. Anyone in Ethiopia, Amharas, Oromos, Tigrayans, Somalis, Afaris, whatever, if they think these national institutions will continue to live for generations, will be making a big historical mistake. And we've been very clear on this matter. We do not consider Tigrayans are more closer to us than the Amharas or the Somalis are closer to us because of this and that political circumstance, and we favor one group against the other. This is not our history, this is not our culture, and it won't serve any purpose in Ethiopia and cannot even serve any good to the people here. We're talking about Eritrea-Ethiopia partnership. It should be understood within this context. So if there are Amharas who believe that Eritrea will abandon them anytime tomorrow or anytime today because of this and that considerations, I would say they're still becoming a hostage of the distortions of history and the machinations that happen every day to incite suspicion, because suspicion is a weapon for the Wayane clique, and I can imagine why they use it, because it's part of their side. And people will have to clearly understand this. Amharas or non-Amharas will have to be clear on this matter. I can go back and see the reality, because it's as if we believe, and I have contested not even Ethiopians but also Eritreans who've had this fantasy or even fear that we can only survive by weakening Ethiopia. One or two maybe, but it's been there. It's philosophical, but politically it has a meaning. I have always said this is not our school of thought. We never come from this direction. Dividing and weakening is a weapon for the weak, for those who are not confident of themselves. We have always believed that we can live side by side with a strong and powerful Ethiopia. Why? Because a united and strong Ethiopia, to me, is strength. The threat is probably nostalgic if you look at it from the historical perspective, because people think if Ethiopia is ruled by someone who wants to invade neighbors, who wants to suppress his own people, who wants to be friendly to outside powers and be instrumental to the implementation of outside. This is history. And people would like to not forget this and try to associate united, strong Ethiopia with a threat. The question is, without making the government here the target of this thinking, which is not true, is a strong, united Ethiopia a threat to Eritrea? Ask me this very simple question. I have never ever imagined this threat in my mind at all. We have worked with Ethiopian organizations not to divide them. We have worked with all Ethiopian organizations because we felt independent Eritrea with a new Ethiopia will start a new chapter of partnership. And that has been one of the pillars of our strategy. If Ethiopia is for Ethiopians, and if Ethiopia is united and strong, united meaning all Ethiopians agree to live together in peace and build a nation for generations to come.
سناي كرامات نوبي طلع عزيرو نوجود الله